This is episode 32 of Flixwatcher podcast. As always, I'm Helen.
And I'm Kobi. On this episode of Flixwatcher, we're talking about prophecy, which is all about angels, with the unangelic Adam from Fixer International and potentially angelic Michelle from Hello Magazine.
Like what you hear? Don't forget to subscribe to us on iTunes. You can find us on Twitter at FlixWatcherPod and visit the website flixwatcher.tv for full listings about this particular show. All films featured in the podcast were available to stream on Netflix UK at the time of recording, and please be aware there will be spoilers and some language that may offend. Do you want a professional sounding podcast as professional as Flixwatcher Pod? If you do, we recommend that you check out GL Productions. They're responsible for our editing and production. They're also going to give you a welcome package, 10% discount. If you're interested, email podcast@glpro.co.uk, send them the message that Flixwatcher Pod sent you, and they'll give you 10% off your first package. Hello and welcome to this edition of Flixwatcher Pod, and today we are joined by Michelle and Adam. Do you want to say hello and introduce yourselves?
Hello.
Hello.
I'm not Michelle. My name's Adam Farina, and I am Managing Director of Fixer International, and I get to work across a spectrum of entertainment and entertainment media events. So I work with film and Comic-Cons, I work with a bunch of different brands that everyone will have seen and experienced, and it's a pleasure to do so.
Hi, I'm Michelle Johnson. I'm a film journalist with Hello Magazine and have known Adam through working with a few of his Comic-Cons. Well, with Destination Star Trek, where I got to live out my inner geek. And yeah, thank you for having us.
Oh, what does that mean? Live out your inner geek?
I got to live out my inner geek by hosting a few of the stage talks. So got to interview Christopher Lloyd and the two Daxes, and was the filling in a Dax sandwich, which, you know.
Which has context.
Has context.
It's not
very
not
little.
Just, yes, but no, Michelle.
Jackies will know.
Yeah, no, Michelle did a fantastic job doing moderator work.
And of course, we're talking Christopher Lloyd from Back to the Future.
Oh yes.
I believe at that particular point he was a Klingon in Star Trek 3.
One of the movies.
Yeah, Star Trek 3, I think.
And yeah.
Well, the latest, the J.J. Abrams one.
No, one of the classics.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's brilliant. But again, he's always known as... See, this is the unfair thing. Christopher Lloyd is known predominantly as Doc Brown, but he's been in Clue. He's been in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
If you missed the Addams Family.
If you missed the Addams Family, I will regret it for the rest of my life, but I won't, because I'll just say it now. And yeah, he's a legend, and that's how Michelle and I know each other. As outside of all the other fantastic things we do that, you know, people should...
Christopher Lloyd brought them together. That's a fantastic
It's very
story.
romantic, isn't it?
Yeah,
in a way, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
So we're here talking about your film choice, Adam, which is Prophecy.
Yes, it is. It's The Prophecy starring...
Oh, is it The Prophecy?
Don't ever forget the
changes. Do you remember in Blockbuster Video when you used to try and find a film and you never knew if they catalogued it the or straight into the noun or whatever it was? Yes, so it's The Prophecy, which is a 1995... It says, according to IMDb, fantasy thriller, but it's not. It's definitely horror. And yes, that's my choice.
And can you give us a synopsis as to what happens?
I can do. So basically, it's the best angel film anyone will ever see. It's basically about the war between heaven and hell, and someone else throws their hat into the circle and creates a third army, essentially, or wants to create a third army, which is Christopher Walken, who plays the Archangel Gabriel. And the only way that they can do it, or the only way that he can do it, is by going down to Earth, taking human form, and collecting a very terrible soul. And he's got to go up against the Archangel Michael, who is God's homeboy, and it's expertly played by Eric Stoltz. On the flip side, he's got the very human Elias Koteas, and that's how you pronounce his name. Should you ever, read the
credits
on Netflix, who is a sort of a fallen priest as such, who is now a police officer. And it's just, whatever people have in terms of opinions on the story and how it plays out, acts 1, 2, 3, and 4, it is definitive in terms of how angels are not seen as little children cherubs and, sort of wonderful, sort of benevolent beings. They are what angels were supposed to be, which is, the arbiters of God's word. and it's just very dark and has amazing performances in it. And Viggo Mortensen is the definitive devil.
And why did you choose it for us to talk about today?
I saw this film, actually thinking back, I saw this film originally, it must have been originally in the 90s, but the sort of the mid to late 90s. It came out in 1995, but the way that Miramax and Harvey Weinstein sort of produced and filmed it was that it was actually shot and edited over a period of a year or 2 years. So it came out around the same time as Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
So there was all, Miramax was on a roll, and it was, making all these amazing films which had a lot of backstory and back character to it. And I saw it through a very good friend of mine. I would have never seen it if it hadn't been for Simon Williams, who is one of the two impresarios of the Big About Film Quiz, which everyone should go to in London. And the other, his partner in crime, is Lee J. Bannister. And Simon and I have been friends since about 1995. And he sort of introduced me to these really weird and very cool movies like Warlock and Nightbreed, and just these movies that were just, you could watch it and go, wow, that's not a traditional slasher or gory horror film. That's actually really intelligent and really cool. And so I got introduced to it and just really loved the idea that angels weren't nice.
Yeah.
That they were dark characters, that they were old biblical stories. Do you remember that scene in Ghostbusters where Winston Zeddemore, played by Ernie Hudson, and Ray Stantz, played by Dan Aykroyd, are kind of cruising along, and they're like, the dead will rise from the grave, and it's all going to be Old Testament.
Yeah, dogs and cats getting on.
Yeah, exactly. Dogs and cats. Mass hysteria. Yeah. And this is it. The prophecy, unfortunately, and I'll put my hand to heart to this, was later followed by sequels which didn't do the original justice. But what had happened was that Miramax had found a nugget in the way that the narrative worked. Not so much the story, because it does have a bit of a convoluted, sort of start and stop to it, but it was just the lines in it are incredible. And I don't want to give away too much because you should watch it and then re-listen to this, but there are things in there which are possibly the most threatening, the most poignant lines that you could give to a character that is essentially older than time, and really, really quite sort of devastating, quite intimidating. The character played by Christopher Walken is obviously the Archangel Gabriel, and he is. Can I swear on this?
Yeah,
you want to fuck with him, basically. He is.
But at no point have I ever thought I want to fuck with Christopher Walken.
He's not the guy that you want to pick a fight with.
And he
so
carries
perfectly
that.
cast.
Yeah, absolutely. And even with the jet black hair, and even then, I think a lot of people. In fact, there's a shout out I should give, because Adam Goldberg, who plays a pet, that's what they call them. They're pets. And again, you'll have to watch the movie to find out. But he is really, he doesn't even score on the cast list, because you've got Amanda Plummer, who plays a pet. You've got Christopher Walken, who plays the Archangel Gabriel. Eric Stoltz, who plays the Archangel Michael. You've got Elias Koteas, who plays Thomas, who is, again, just such a great actor. He did another angel film with Paul Hogan called Almost an Angel, which is not anything like this. Also, there's another actor who, again, I don't know if anyone who listens is a fan of Seven, but I always say that the coroners are always kind of an underground, sort of silent boost to these kind of movies. And there's a character called Joseph, who's the coroner, but played by Steve Hittner,
who was in Ghostbusters 2.
Yes.
Is he also? He looks so much like the guy from Ally McBeal in this film.
I can't remember Ally McBeal.
I can't remember.
I wish I'd Wikipedia'd this. I will Google this when we have a break.
I'm just kidding.
What's Ally McBeal?
No, and he plays it, but he plays again the character. He's only got a few short scenes, and it just knocks it up to a level where he's unbelieving, sarcastic, but it create the only
and has some of the best lines.
Absolutely. I just love the one about the hermaphrodite stuff and the way he executes it. But there's also, kindred to that is that it's fallen out of my head. There's the coroner in Seven.
Yeah. Played
by the same actor who is the barbecue sort of businessman in House of Cards. And again, short scene. Yeah. And again, I wish I could figure out the name right now. But again, there are these little sort of nuanced characters that are just play to the bigger picture. And again, the storyline does suffer, but I love the fact that Simon recommended it to me, and it's been one of my favorite films.
And you thought you'd share with the rest of us here. And the rest of the listeners.
And I'm very privileged to, yes, with such a great podcast, yeah. Absolutely.
Michelle, what are your thoughts on it? Have you seen it before?
I saw it. I have a habit of doing marathons, as we mentioned earlier, whether that's a director and watching everything they've ever done or an actor and watching everything I can get my hands on. Shortly after the last Lord of the Rings, when I was, in need of more, long before The Hobbit was a sad blink on the horizon, I had a Viggo Mortensen marathon and stumbled across the prophecy. I forgot about it entirely, but yeah, literally watched it then for Viggo's Lucifer, and that is the thing that stands out to me most. I had no idea this was 95. While I was watching it, I didn't bother to Wikipedia it, to be totally honest. It was so 80s. I had no idea. It's the most insane film one of the most insane films I think I've ever seen, which is not a detriment at all. But there's so much that does not stand the test of time. Like the special effects are awful.
Yeah, when they go into that cave, for example, and the
Oh
angels
my
are.
God.
Absolutely. And it reminds me of what they wanted to. I'm trying to remember when did Gary Oldman's Dracula come out?
92.
92. So it was ever so slightly early. Yes, that was almost, 91, 92. And there are moments when at the beginning where you see him fighting and there's all the, sort of Vlad the Impaler kind of sort of CGI, well, attempted CGI. I mean, I don't know what it's called now. I know there's the difference between visual effects and special effects. But I got that feel that that's what they wanted to create.
And didn't.
But it was still very good, though. Still very good.
In this film, you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. Oh, we can't afford Dracula. That's a whole other
The sequels get worse.
Yeah.
Fabulously worse.
Fabulous. There's guys we had on our podcast who watch the franchise
This
detectives.
should
they
be
call
one
themselves.
for them. I think they might
God.
get something
Yeah.
out of this one.
So they
Definitely.
watched like Universal Soldier, but they watched the first one all the way through to Universal Soldier 6.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No.
That's good, guys. Yeah, to the bitter end guys say.
Yeah, you should maybe put this on your list.
Put
There
this on
is
your list.
there
The
is only
Prophecy.
5 in total, so it might be quite a short run for
short
them.
run,
But
yeah.
it does feel like about 17 by the time you get to number
Correct.
3 and 4.
See, I see. This is the thing, and sort of, when you watch one, should you watch the rest? And I remember
No.
watching the first few minutes of the second one, and sort of, but Christopher Walken comes back because he's the the sort of the main name to it, and just nothing anywhere near as cool as the first one, and so it just goes, and that's it. And then they brought in Eric Roberts as Michael, which that's the second time Eric Stoltz has been recast as.
That's
I
enough.
think
Was
so.
he Michael? Was he Simon?
I thought it was his.
Was he not
no,
Simon?
oh, that's right. Sorry, I've been saying
Sexy
Archangel Michael
Simon.
for this,
Stephen.
yeah.
Is it
No,
Simon?
no,
Yes. Okay.
It is. Sorry. All right. Well, so rewind. I'm just kidding. Yeah. So no, not the Archangel Michael. Apologies. Yes, Archangel Simon. Yeah. No, and then that's right. Eric Roberts came in. See, that's a mind wipe now completely.
It is crazy how quickly this film does that to you.
Yeah.
But
What,
in
it
a-
raises your mind.
Yes.
There's a lot to
It's
think about.
deeply
It gives the
perverse
audience a
though,
lot
isn't
of
it?
credit.
Yeah.
And even though I watched it last night and I've literally got notes in front of me, once you get into what the most important thing about the movie is, which is the narrative aspect of it, it just creates this sort of, it changes the way you think. Who here has watched Nicolas Cage in City of Angels?
Yes.
I
So-
can't remember.
See, that's the thing. You become really sort of, it's almost like Game of Thrones. It's like you don't really know the names anymore. You're like, well, that one with the the short one, or that one with the hair, or that one with whatever. And honestly, it's a really to keep in touch with all these difficult angel names like Simon and Michael.
Wasn't John Travolta an angel called Michael in the film?
Yes, he was. Yes, he was. My God, now we're really going back.
I've not seen
The
it. I've just seen. It's like with the
Angel
Paul
Fest
Hogan
here.
one. I just remember seeing the images on the VHS cover or the DVD covers and just thinking, nah,
Yeah.
that's not for me.
And this was really the only one in memory that changed the way that I thought that this particular kind of, I don't even know if it's mythology, it's more religion, changed the way that people, I think, should view angels.
So if you're saying if this film didn't come, then I know Dogma isn't. Are they angels in Dogma?
Yes,
They're
they are,
angels,
Yeah.
yeah.
So if this didn't happen, then we couldn't have had Dogma.
Well, saying that, I think Dogma would have had a very firm foundation. Dogma has a very firm foundation to be able to sort of have that kind of a movie. If it didn't happen, Kevin Smith, I think, is a genius anyway. He's had his highs and lows, but I mean, Alan Rickman as the Metatron, and then you've got sort of Matt Damon and Ben Affleck as, and again, not
Loki and Bartleby.
there. Thank you. See, where were you when I needed Michael and Simon? Oh no, wait, you were exactly there. Just let me run off.
Sorry.
But honestly, but that's another refreshing take on what if you were to apply the real world element of how angels can be described and how they can play their role in films. Ironically, it makes me think of how Avengers are played crossed with, say, a movie like Unbreakable. So superheroes in kind of the sort of the big actiony sense. Actually, the real life versions, if you were to see them every single day, would probably be Bruce Willis
In
or
Unbreakable,
Samuel, exactly, Samuel Jackson. It would be Glassman or Mr. Glass. Yeah. So this is what that movie really brings to the table, and which is why it's very watchable.
Helen, what are your thoughts on
I wanted to hear your first because
Why do you want to hear mine first?
because obviously, I mean, it's billed sort of supernatural horror, science fiction, but I guess it tends to go down more the horror route.
Completely outside of my normal sphere of influence. I gut reaction was not a bigger fan of it. I was really intrigued because Christopher Walken, Amanda Plummer, Eric Stoltz always makes me laugh when he's on screen because I just keep on thinking, you fucked up Back to the Future, mate. So every time I see him, I can't go, that's at least you're doing some work, mate. Adam Goldberg's always a pleasure to hear his voice when I see him on screen.
So Private Ryan, honestly, I mean, he carries it with whatever character he's in.
So I always enjoy seeing those characters on screen. I didn't really get, this is one cool thing about doing the podcast, and it's happened in previous episodes where people explain the plot to me in a way that makes more sense to me
than actually watching the film.
Yeah, because when I was watching, I was kind of going, and what is happening now? Yeah. So that's quite cool, actually, that you've unpicked it for me in that how it works. I like the people in it more than I like the film.
Yes,
going on around it, and things. It kind of reminded me of an X-Files light in a way. There's some X-Files stories which I thought had more punch to it.
Yes.
Than what's been in the Prophecy. So I'd rather go back and watch some X-Files, especially some of the
earlier ones. Really.
Yeah, some of the earlier ones. There's some ARC episodes, and it involves some people, some Native Americans, which kind of gets really creepy in some of the earlier episodes as well.
It's funny actually that you said that, and you mentioned it when you kind of sent initial notes, but I never saw the X-Files thing until you mentioned it.
Yeah.
And now I think the Prophecy would have been really strong as a TV show.
Okay.
If the film itself, I think it would have made more sense. You could have really gone in depth in these perverse characters and the really dark themes.
Oh.
It's funny you mention that because I think when I first watched that, I had no idea about the comic series Preacher. And after reading Preacher...
Dominic, what's his face?
Dominic...
Cooper,
yes. He was a lovely fella, by the way. Met him in Texas.
Clang.
Just name dropping there and being like high five. No, but honestly, when sort of very brief conversation, but he there was a lot of pressure on him, I think, at the time to make Preacher work because it was starting to draw away from the source material. And if anyone's read Preacher, you would immediately identify with Prophecy,
right?
With the Prophecy, just the angel story, the back arc of Genesis, on the back arc of a few other interlocking things that bring it down to earth. Prophecy would have been an amazing television series, and I think it would have been much better to expand the universe that way than the movies. Preacher, did that, I think, very well in the Amazon Prime show, but it lacked the substance that I think the comic series had, and that was the interlocking thing for everything.
Are we allowed to pimp Amazon Prime?
We can talk about them, but
that's
how you watch this.
But that's the Netflix. Honestly, though, is the tits. Just
you don't have to pander to it. It's all right.
No.
Helen,
they're not listening.
Yeah. So Helen, what are your thoughts then? Were my comments substantial enough for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's always nice to hear how a non-horror fan feels about a horror film, but I was also surprised that it was made in 1995 because it looks a lot older.
Or is it that Christopher Walken looks very, very young?
Well, if you're talking about kind of release, this is only a year after, in theory,
after Pulp Fiction,
really. Yeah. I mean, he kind of looks the same. I mean, he's generally watchable in pretty much anything because, he gives everything to the part. And as a curious sort of factor, seeing Elias Koteas with hair, which is basically what I noticed throughout the whole film, I just kept looking and going, so that's what he looked like with hair.
So I don't know.
Who is he?
He's really famous.
Is he?
Yeah, he's been in loads of films, but I've never seen him with that hair looks real.
Honestly,
he was in The Thin Red Line. He was in Crash. He's been in loads of TV series as well.
He's also favorited a tweet of mine. If anyone ever wants to find that out,
I think he's
Mr.
great.
Fancy Pants 2K. If anyone wants to never see anything that I do,
I kept on thinking, is this John Hamm's brother or something weird like that?
But the reason you're not recognising him because
he doesn't have any hair anymore.
He's not had hair for a long, long time, and his face is so recognisable without the hair. So, and also obviously Virginia Madison, who's great.
Yes.
And obviously, I'm going to call him Viggo. The cast is great, and it really is surprising that the film's not a reflection of that.
So we've just pulled up
pictures
of who he is. Can I go through his filmography very
Please
briefly?
do, yeah.
All right. So he's Casey Jones in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in 1990.
No way.
Yeah,
no.
The Thin Red Line, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, Let Me In, Shooter, Shutter Island, Collateral Damage, Some Kind of Wonderful with the wonderful Leah Thompson, Haunting in
She is
Connecticut.
Do you
Look Who's
recognise him
Talking
now
To.
without
He's
the
such a
hair?
background actor. And
Most actors in Hollywood do the silver fox thing. They look young and lovely, and then they get better and better and better. With the greatest of respect to Elias Koteas, he is a good-looking man. He has not silver foxed.
Let's pick it.
You see, I love the vulnerable. I think he's like a vulnerable-looking Harrison Ford. Because if you look at him,
Casey Jones.
you know, if you look at two sides of his face,
Yeah.
you know, like you do with Harrison Ford, one side of Harrison Ford's face always smiles, the other one is always frowny. Whereas it's kind of the same thing if you were to do the same with
Elias
a
Koteas.
picture, Elias Koteas picture. And he's brilliant, but I think Helen picks up on an amazing point. The one thing that we haven't discussed, which is Viggo. I think the performance that makes the whole film is Viggo Mortensen. It's, I think, the most gut-wrenching, best performance of the devil.
He is wonderfully chilling.
And the way that he executes lines, and again, people will have to watch the movie up until almost all the way to the end, but he just owns it. And there is such a threatening manner to him, especially in the last scene, which he just says something very simply, and I'm sure that people will be able to figure out which one it is when they watch it. And yeah, it's just...
Well,
it's
we're giving spoilers all the way through, mate. Don't worry
Okay,
about
all right.
yeah.
Well, he says he's basically sort of he's
I
one.
love you more than Jesus.
Well,
That's the bit that gets
do that
me.
again. Do that again.
I love you more than Jesus.
See, that's exactly how he says it. But he's talking to Thomas, Elias Koteas' character, and right at the very end, they have this wonderful scene where he's kind of climbing on his back, and he's feeling him, and he's sort of over him, and he's massively intimidating. And then there's the end scene where, you know, Christopher Walken, he has to die to come back in the second one, just to give it away. But he says something to Thomas, and he's talking previously to him about how he was a scared little child, and he knows that he was turning the lights off at night and wondering what was under his bed and everything else. And he just squares up to him and he just says, "Keep the lights on, Thomas." And when the devil says that to you, it's like, oh.
I love how, in a weird, again, the thing that gets me about this film, the thing I really like about it, which maybe says more about me than it does about the film, is that it is so perverse. The angels themselves, there are these huge overtones of, well, there are overtones, I guess, because the adults, when they interact, seeing the angels interacting with children, the adults are really freaked out because there are overtones of paedophilia, there are overtones of these really dark themes, and then obviously autopsy scenes when angels themselves are aborted fetuses. They are really strange elements to this film. And I think it's quite daring for 95.
Well, even with the moments where they
I thought it was more daring for the 80s when I thought it was set, but you know what I mean.
But no, I completely agree. I do I agree with the fact that when angels, in the way that they're depicted in the movie, experience the world, because it's literally by two senses. One is smell, one is by taste. So you see these very weird interactions with the environment, and there's a really cool moment when Adam Goldberg is transporting Christopher Walken's character, and he says, "I can't see anything. You know, I can't see anything." And there's also strange moments when Amanda Plummer is being revived to be a pet, and she immediately knows it's not like there's a stranger there sitting in my hospital room, I'm dying. I already start to lament, I already start to cry. And they start to experience that, even as a character experiencing another character in a very strange way. And it sort of opens your mind up to it. And again, I do agree. They're
very inhuman.
Yes. And that's how powerful this movie is. I wouldn't necessarily say it's pedophilia.
No, forgive me. But I mean, the way that as an adult human being, the way you are viewing it.
Yes.
Like when...
So, for instance, when
Mary's on Simon's lap in the school, for example, and he's feeding her the Coke, and then it's a very romantic. The way the scenes are set is actually very romantic. So the way that the characters are sitting is if it was an adult woman and an adult man, it's a comic book set. It's a sitcom setting. You walk in and the behavioural clues are that it's a romance. When there are a lot of children surrounding Christopher Walken and he's, you know, plying them with sweets and pulling them onto his laps, and the teacher is responding to it like, this child is sitting on his lap, and she specifically says it. The girl was sitting on his lap.
Yeah,
he was holding her in his lap, and that. So the we read it as
It's even
paedophilia is what I
creepier.
mean.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it makes it feel very inhuman and very, very
And
creepy.
very invasive, and very
yes.
sort of in your face kind of, in terms of how these aren't cherubs. These aren't soft touch, I will guide you through life and I'll protect you. These are characters that are actually quite violent and has the potential for violence. No, I mean, you absolutely pick it up very, very well. And again, but for a horror, this is why I think it's horror.
Yeah.
Not fantasy thriller.
I'd say it's more on the horror vibe.
Yeah. And it's very well done.
Helen's laughing. But wait, just forget. I want to go back to Helen in a second.
It's certainly fantastic.
You said about they can only taste and smell.
Yes.
But there's that
That's
point.
the primary
And touch.
sources
As a
of-
primary. But when Christopher Walken goes into the hospital, where
Yeah.
he picks up Amanda Plummer, he picks up their charts
Yes.
and reads them and says,
He does, but the preamble to that is that he goes straight in and he sniffs.
yeah,
And he's like, I
I
can
can
smell
sense,
it.
I can
Yes.
smell the stuff.
And
Yeah,
then he looks at the charts. And again, that was the Act 3 gradient. So if you can imagine, sort of having to establish the characters as something that's quite sort of serious and imposing and intimidating, he's having comedic elements closer to the end. If you can imagine, in the same way, Terminator 2, my favorite film, by the way, you can see the Terminators being quite sort of very compartmentalized to what their characters are. Cold, heartless, directed.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to watch Act 1 of Terminator 2 and then go into Act 4, both of them have started developing sense of humor because they've captured the audience. They want to then sort of further the identification. And I think with what Christopher Walken starts to do, he starts to swagger. He starts to get his placement. He's on Earth now, and he's trying to, make his mark. But he needed that ability to. He needed the audience to connect with him in some way. And now he's just holding the humor to it. He can't get darker.
But also, by then he knows what he's looking for.
Exactly.
So he's cocky.
yeah.
Yes, as angels do. So no, it's really
Pride cometh before the fall.
Yeah. And can we just pull up the? And I also think the poster for this movie is probably not represented.
There's
that
a few different posters for this
There
movie.
is, and I think the one that's on Netflix isn't the best one. So we've got a screen in front of us, and it's this one here. And the tagline is just amazing because, again, talk about that Native American X-Files feel.
Yeah.
Like, Anasazi was an amazing X-Files episode. This one here, the tagline is, on ancient ground at the end of the world. An ancient ground at the edge of the world, an evil is born in heaven, about to be unleashed on earth. And it's just the kind of horror film you want, not to be gored out and whatever, but just creeped out by the fact there is potentially something bigger that might go after you while you're sitting chilling
Sitting
watching
chilling.
Netflix. Yeah, it's very cool.
I've seen Helen's been absorbing the conversation through. I haven't got a sense of how you feel about the film yet, though.
Oh, it's a bit naff.
You see that dent at the top of your lip?
Yeah. I mean,
A long time ago,
Don't
before you were
understand
born, I said, shh.
yeah. I mean, Christopher Walken, as I said before, it is pretty entertaining. And, he does carry it throughout the whole way through. It has that really weird mixture where Christopher Walken is kind of playing it tongue-in-cheek and gets some humorous lines, and it kind of becomes a little bit funny towards the end. I mean, the scenes in the one where he's checking the mouths for the soul is
Checking the
quite
kids'
funny.
mouths,
Yeah.
yeah.
But then it's played so po-faced and straight and so weirdly by everyone else that it's like, well, it could have all been done a little bit tongue-in-cheek and had a little bit of fun, but it's a mixture of being taking itself so seriously in bits and then being a little bit funny that it's just
It knew
not
what
really.
genre
Did it
it
creep
wanted
you
to
out?
be.
No.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
I looked at it and I just went, when he's doing those scenes, they must have been, for an actor,
Yeah.
massively uncomfortable. I don't care how method you are, and you'd like to think that you weren't that method, that you look in, sort of, even in the way that when the soul transfers from
Simon to
Simon's
Mary.
mouth, he's not seen as being evil. It's just almost like, I sort of likened it to the sort of the natural process of breastfeeding.
What?
Hang on a second. Let me justify this.
Sorry, but what?
No,
Do you mean the bit where he snogs a corpse?
No.
Well, no. You know
Well,
what?
he snogs the corpse,
So
but
Simon,
then also he snogs the child.
He snogs
Mary.
the
No,
corpse.
hang a
and
second.
then
They're
hang a second.
transferring
We can
souls.
slightly pervert this and pollute this by saying, well, he's snogging. He's not. There's kind of a transference that happens, which is when one soul goes to the other, it has to go through the mouth. And I likened it to the fact is that, yes, what natural process happens that people can say, well, that's a bit taboo, that's a bit whatever. And that's why I use the example of breastfeeding. But on the flip side, when you've got this happening between an angel and a host, and that's what she essentially is. That's why I don't think that Christopher Walken's character, Gabriel, looks at kids as children. He looks at them as hosts.
No, absolutely.
And so when there's a transference happening between a dead body and the angel, or a child and the angel, it's just, that's what has to happen. Which is why I think it's very impressive of the actors to be able to commit to something like that, because I do think that it was a very bold film to make it work in the creepy way that it does, which is why it's not a fantasy thriller. It's definitely horror. I
would really like to see it as a TV show with much more... I like the creepy element. I think I'm just creepy. And I would like a lot more of the creeptastic elements. I want it to be like one of those awful Channel 5, 1 a.m. What was that terrible one that Michael Fassbender was in with the lesbian ghost? That was great, really perverse, where he was an angel, came down to or a demon or something, but something really creepy and strange and possibly set in a boarding school. Do you know what I mean? I think this would work really well if it ramped up the creeptastic elements and was a TV show.
No, I agree. And I think that if Preach had been half of this, then it would have attached on to what the story originally was.
So is Preacher finished now? Is that?
You know what? I don't know. I think it went through this weird transition of being funded because Netflix does have the best original series, hands down. Whereas Preacher was sort of developed from Garth Ennis's story. It went through sort of studio executives' fingers and sort of mixed and matched and whatever. And I remember watching it and going, "That's all right, not bad."
Yeah,
it's great. When you read the books, it's a 9. I'm sure it's a 9 series graphic novel sort of collection. By the end of book 1, I'm like, right, that's it. I can't go to work tomorrow. I can't possibly. I just need to call in sick and just do it. And that's what it lacked in the TV series, because I remember watching the first couple of episodes and thinking, the way that it's trailered, it's very good. Dominic's very good in it. There was a bit of creative casting for a few characters, which I don't know if it worked or not because I didn't see the series through. But when I started watching Prophecy, even though there was a mix and match of a little bit of the narrative and the acts, because it wasn't particularly fluid, which is the only detriment that you can have to the story, I thought that...
It's quite a major detriment, to be fair.
Really?
If you don't understand the story, then how you can't appreciate narrative.
Because honestly, it goes all the way up to really good points all the way to the end, including Viggo Mortensen's role. So it's not just saying, right, well, cookie cutter, Act 1 is the introduction of characters, Act 2 is...
do you mean within the film, within the series of films?
No, I mean within the film.
So we're talking about Prophecy now, not Preacher.
Yes, no, exactly. But I think if there are elements of the story that are not clear, and these huge mishmashes and kind of some setups for some of the characters, then that is a detriment. And a lot of people who watch the Prophecy do find it incredibly confusing.
I was one of them.
But then I was in and out of attention, which we'll come to, but I wasn't entirely sure why they were all doing it and what was going on. I mean, I got the idea that there's a soul being transferred and all of that business, but
there was a lot of...
Have you seen this before?
No, I hadn't seen this before.
No, but I give complete credit to that. That's where the failing is, because if it had a build-up saying, Ermager, we have to make sure
and
that,
a very heavy edit in some places.
What do you mean?
Pace.
Oh, right, okay, sorry, so you mean pace. So, yeah, I completely agree with what Helen's saying, is that if you've got a much clearer, what's the risk? Where are we going with this? That's the risk. And progressing with that kind of story arc, absolutely. This is where the movie doesn't work. But that's what I'm saying is that the only strong element to this movie in the way that it's presented outside of the narrative is how angels operate and how they affect people on Earth and how you can have like a second war in heaven. And that's why I chose the film, because I think that's great. So
yeah, fair enough. Shall we
get some scores? But before we get some scores,
it's popcorn time.
Popcorn time.
Yeah.
Who doesn't love a bit of popcorn when they're at the cinema or at home?
These are popcorn. This is popcorn from the popcorn shed, guys. Crunch away, guys. Crunch away.
So which one is this? Which flavour is this?
This is salted caramel.
So let's have a quick sort of preference. Who prefers salted generally?
Me.
See, that's the thing. I don't, but I do like this.
And who prefers sweet?
I'm always a sweet guy.
See, I
Sweet.
do, but I've not tasted the sweet yet.
This is sweet. This,
This
is
is
caramel.
salted
Salted
caramel.
Yeah. I'm talking about savoury popcorn versus sweet popcorn, just in general.
In general.
So we don't have a second variety available just
No.
just yet. Okay.
Not yet.
No, this is delicious. This is really, really nice. And this is popcorn shed.
Yeah.
Mm.
So available at a stockist near you.
I hope
With a
so.
really cute box. Let's
Yeah.
actually
the
point this
packaging
out.
is
It looks like a
amazing.
little house.
Packaging is lovely.
Yeah.
Popcorn shed, little shed.
Little wooden shed. This is Joe. Sam and Laura made this.
Who's Sam and Laura?
These are the guys behind Popcorn Shed, and
Well, popcorn's had a bit of a revival recently because it's kind of seen as the good for you snacks. Obviously, it's gluten free and it's delicious, which is bad because I've recovered from a popcorn addiction, which I now feel that I've come off the wagon and my teeth may suffer for
for the
it.
benefit of the show, though.
It's okay, exactly. There's some kind of redemption here. Come on, dig in. No, it's delicious actually. Have you got any more of these?
Yeah, it's a big bowl right in front of your face.
It is good. It is very, very sweet though. I mean, I think I prefer salty.
Yeah, as
but
a
I would
salty
quite like
popcorn
to mix
girl,
in
I like
salted
this.
with that. So if you have a mix of salty and sweet.
Oh, now we're talking.
Well, that's delicious. So
Yep.
everyone now, popcorn shed, buy it.
Apparently,
At
it's
least try
made
it.
from a secret family recipe as well. I'm not sure
The
what
corn
the
itself.
secret ingredient is, but I think what does it say? It's made from Belgium. Is it Belgian
Yeah.
chocolate?
Belgian chocolate,
So-
Belgian milk chocolate.
So salted caramel popcorn with Belgian milk chocolate, and it's all tasty.
It's delicious.
Time for the scores.
Different music interlude.
Mm.
Let's go to the scores.
So the first up on our unique scoring system is the recommendability. So we will start with you, Adam, seeing as it was your choice. These are out of 5, and you can add a point here and there, or if you want to round your scores off.
Okay. Well, I think for recommendability, I would actually give it a 4. Because you will.
Strong start there.
It is, because I think that you will find some people that you just wouldn't recommend it to. And you'd say, you know what, if you like this kind of stuff, great. But if not, don't have a bad, viewing experience, because it does take a little bit of dedication and watching it through, because you aren't following a very traditional way that movies are presented. So out of 5, I'd give it a 4.
Michelle.
I'm gonna say 3 but with caveats, because again, I agree entirely. I think there's a lot of people I wouldn't recommend it to. I think that if you're kind of a classic film fan, I think then this could be up your alley, because it's got those elements of genre, it's got those elements of creepy stuff, and it's quite slow. So it's certainly not I've got a couple of hours and I want to watch a high impact, high octane thriller or just scare myself. But if you are kind of awake at midnight and really want to watch something kind of weird and feels quite 80s,
I think that's
very good.
I think that fits the bill. Kind of
So
80s, kind of weird.
Kind of 80s,
If
kind
you
of
have
weird.
insomnia
If you,
Oh, well.
and you're scared of the dark.
Yes. No, perfect.
Well,
I
you
mean
think-
this in a good way.
When you
no,
were thinking
absolutely.
80s, were you thinking like if Lost Boys, but with a bit more of an edge to it?
Don't dare insult Lost Boys.
No, I was just trying
Lost Boys.
No, but I know what he's saying.
No, I'm
though.
trying to get why you thought this might be an 80s film.
It's a combination of the terrible. Yeah, it looks really. It hasn't aged well, but it's interesting. But it hasn't aged well.
Yeah.
And the
I mean, yeah,
soundtrack
this
is
came
so
out after
80s.
Pulp
Also,
Fiction.
I mean, after the 70s initial horror wave, the 80s were the genre, choice. A majority of films that are cited as being pinpoint horror films were all made pretty much in the 80s. That
Okay.
was when
And the soundtrack
they became
really backs
blockbusters
up.
as well, when they were actually bankable.
Okay.
And this is the gold of Miramax, because they made, Harvey Weinstein made a bunch of movies like this, Boondock Saints and Pulp Fiction, and they ran the 90s essentially in terms of how the genre was created. I believe so. I agree. I think you've hit some good points.
Helen, recommendability.
I'm going to give it a 2. I'm going to recommend this specifically to our teammate Gareth. If you haven't seen it, Gareth, please can you see it? Or if you've seen it, can
Watch
you
it,
let me
Gareth.
know what you've thought? And also, I'd recommend this for anyone who'd like to see what Elias Koteas looks like with hair.
Yes.
Or
It's
people who don't know
game
who Elias
changer.
Koteas is.
Yeah.
And Viggo fans.
That's
because...
unacceptable, by the way. If you don't know who he is, then find him.
Well, it's quite interesting because I've loved as a kid. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was, of course, one of my favorite films. But it's one of those films where you just don't know any of the actors or actresses in it, which is kind of strange. So that Elias Koteas was one of the main characters. Casey Jones is a fucking
Have you had your mind blown?
mentalist. I'm
Have
genuinely-
I have a
Have you
bit.
seen Fallen?
No,
He makes the movie and he's in it for the first 5 minutes.
right.
It's John Goodman, Denzel, and he is incredible. And he is such an incredible actor that, you know, in the same way that Bill Paxton is an incredible actor,
Mm.
you know, bless him. Oh, that, you know, him passing away affected me actually quite personally. It was one. It's he's the kind of actor that just nails it, and then they go away. There's no celebrity bravado.
Yeah.
So Elias Koteas, absolutely.
My point with Elias Koteas is that now I know who he is, even though I've seen some of the films he's been in. It still doesn't.
I
can't
think it just
think of
depends
him, but
on actors
think-
you kind of like. I mean,
But I'm thinking of people like Pete Postlethwaite. How do you say his name?
Pete Postlethwaite.
And like
Very good.
and Paul Giamatti, for example.
Yes.
When you start to recognize them in films,
Yes.
and then you go back to films, you go back and remember them in other films that I think that was Paul Giamatti in that film.
Yeah.
But Elias Koteas, he doesn't
He
stand
doesn't pop
down.
in- yes.
Yeah, it doesn't pop into
He
my
looks
head.
very different.
And those kinds of character actors, when they become a name or face, you kind of revere them for those roles. But I just can't really buy into him.
Well, before you go on to your sort of scoring,
Yeah.
Giovanni Ribisi.
Yeah,
Do you know the name?
absolutely.
Do you know the face?
Yes.
Yeah.
Then very cool.
Yeah.
Because he's another one that I feel sort of gets lost every so often because of he's not a.
Oh, I think he's a fantastic actor.
I like Elias Koteas so much that when he plays a bad guy, it actually makes me sad.
Oh no.
Oh,
Because
I'm
I don't want him
irrationally
to be a bad
frightened of
guy.
Kevin Bacon because I can't think of a single
It's
thing I've
hilarious.
Have you
filmed.
seen the
seen-
adverts? Everyone's irrationally frightened of it.
I thought you said. I thought you were thinking of Kevin. I was thinking of Kevin Costner when you said that. Then I was going.
Him
to say
too.
Hidden Figures.
I
That's
watched
it.
Mr.
Flashdance
Brooks.
and I was it Flash? No, it's not Flashdance. It's in Footloose.
Footloose is,
Yeah.
I
Kevin
watched
Bacon,
Footloose for the first time as an adult, and I was waiting for him to turn into the bad guy.
Yeah. I'm going to give it a 2 for maybe even more. I'm leaning more towards like a 1.5. Well, I'll keep it as a 2. I think there will be people who are horror kind of completists, and I do like the people in it. So I'd recommend people, even like say like Adam Goldberg. Adam Goldberg's another character actor where
Yes.
every time now I know who he is, want to realize who he is. When he pops back into something, I'm like, hey, Adam Goldberg's here.
Yeah.
And that's basically just from his one appearance in Days of Confused, basically. And everything I've seen him in
Yeah.
since and before then, I'm like, awesome. So I like it. Recommend it for the people who are in it, because I think it's a
Yes,
good
very
starting
good.
point for a lot of the people in there. Apart from Christopher Walken, who's obviously been in a lot of things beforehand. Repeat viewing score, guys. Adam.
How many times have you seen it, just out of interest? Do you
That's,
know?
It's a very good question. I think I've probably seen it about since watching it first time. Sorry, I'm just enjoying this popcorn here because it is delicious. I think I've probably seen it full since 1995 about 6 times. It's not the kind of movie that you can watch over again and again. However, it's
But
but I thought, you know, ironically, when Simon introduced it to me, Simon Williams, we started working on kind of a little sort of fan fiction thing, which was taking the narrative of the angels and what you could do with it and kind of applying it in a sort of in a similar fashion to a story that, you know, I think Simon wanted to call this idea, which again we should sort of say, you know, it's being heard right now first. I wanted to call it Heaven Soldier. He wanted to call it, you know, Hell to Pay. I think that's shit. It wasn't going to work. But no, I mean, I think repeat viewing, you should save it. I don't think you can watch it and then watch it again. I think at least it at least merits 2 viewings.
Okay. So how does that translate into our patented score?
3 out of 5.
Michelle.
I'm going to say 1 out of 5 for repeatability.
You've already seen it twice.
I
so-
have, but this is the thing. I will say that the first time I was only in it for Viggo, and I watched it. I skipped it a bit, and I will say that this time, having watched it through, I definitely understood it a lot more. So I'd say maybe watch it once, but once more.
Yeah,
but having
so
like.
twice.
So watch it twice. Yes, that's exactly what I was trying to get at. But definitely, you can easily leave a good 5 years or so between them, and it doesn't hurt your love for it.
Agreed.
I was just trying to. Because obviously, I don't want to try and be too harsh on films that I've slated a lot harder. But I don't need to see it again. 0.
Why?
Well, I don't know. I didn't really enjoy it particularly. I mean,
which is good enough.
Yeah.
But is it because you didn't enjoy it or didn't understand it? What it was kind of the sort of the world it was trying to create.
I don't really know. It knows what world it was trying to create. I think it had an idea of what it did, but whether it kind of fell short in not being able to coherently put that across or suffering from a poor special effects for its time.
I don't think it was poor for
It was. It absolutely was. I thought it was like early 80s.
Yeah, I thought it was like
based on
85 maybe. I was surprised to actually go, oh, it's actually 95.
I quite like the feel of it. Oh, but I mean, that's just,
Unless
I
it was
James
trying to
Cameron,
go
by
for
the way. James,
that.
if you're listening.
vibe.
You've got your score. You've got your score here. At the moment, you've got 4 and 3. Let Helen have it. Let Helen have her 0.
I mean, I can think of other films about angels that I would rather watch as a comparison, and other films about kind of like, demons or Christopher Walken in a horror role that I would watch again, or ones that I haven't seen before as a sort of reference.
I'm going to give it 1. I'm going to say never say never, but
which is a good philosophy.
And it'd be interesting if someone gave me more. It was good that he gave me more insight into the film, and I can imagine someone else giving a bit more insight as to how it was built and how it was put together and stuff like that, which might make me think, yeah, I'll watch it again. But I can't foresee when that'll happen. It won't be anytime soon, but and we'll talk about engagement score shortly. Small screen score.
You know what? I don't think would have liked to have watched this movie in a theatre.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a big screen experience at all. I think it's actually quite you could take your partner to the movies and watch it as fancy thriller and end up being like a horror movie. I think for a first time big screen watch it would have failed. For a small screen, absolutely. I think it works very well. I wouldn't watch it on a phone because I never watch anything on a phone. I'd watch it maybe on an iPad, but I think it needs the lights out in a personal setting.
Right.
And so I think that again, and probably another 3.
Okay.
Another 3.
I thought you were going for a high score then for the small screen, the way you built it up there.
Yeah.
Michelle?
I don't know how to score this because I don't think I understand. So, no, I'm going to go for a 4, actually, because I agree with all of that. I think it'd be kind of naff in a larger setting because you could see how bad the effects are, whereas bad effects on TV are totally cool. But this for me is very much, you remember when you're a kid and you stay up too late and you've watched Friends and Frasier and Red Dwarf and Eurotrash and you still want to stay up a little bit.
That's a great Friday night
This
combination.
dates me so much. This dates me so much.
Fantastic.
That is completely 1997.
And then,
Yes, yeah.
yeah, exactly. And then your mum doesn't realise you're still awake. So you switch to Channel 4 or Channel 5 when it first came on. And
This
it
would
had
definitely be on Channel 5.
terrible,
Every
those
week.
terrible horror films at like 1 a.m. This is that. And that's why I think I like it. It feels like that. It is just
That's a
that.
very lovely way of saying it.
So in a weird way, it's nostalgic for you.
It's hugely
Yeah.
nostalgic.
Massive.
Yeah. It is Channel 5 vintage naff horror, but in a
After 1 a.m.
after 1.
Right,
Yeah, watch
yeah.
it after 1 a.m. when
Yeah.
you've disgusted yourself with Eurotrash. Need to calm down a bit
Yeah.
from the weird ping pong lady.
Lola Ferrari was the one for me that scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Okay, Helen.
A 3. I mean, God, don't watch it on anything really big.
No.
I mean, for circumstances that I had to actually listen to this through headphones, and I'm just like thinking now that for kind of a horror film or anything like that, I can't really recall the soundtrack being particularly remarkable or
awful.
interesting.
It's terrible. It's just like
Yeah.
strings cutting one scene to another.
Which I think a lot of horror films, that's one thing they do is create atmosphere and tension and everything by purely the use of sound. And I think that's one of the best tools that a horror film can have. And I would have expected having like the headphones on to
Enhance it.
yeah, or to, even if I wasn't exactly thoroughly engaged, the score would like lift me up as, oh, something's going to be happening now, or build up the tension. But I can't really recall that. So I think that's a bit of a shame. But yeah, it works. It works on Netflix. I think one thing that Netflix does do quite well is you've got this huge library of very obscure horror films that you may have only watched on VHS or managed to watch around at a friend's before Netflix existed, and it does give you quite a good chance to revisit those moments. Like the bitter end guys was what they, that kind of thing was definitely there. So I think it works well if you maybe remember seeing it briefly, then you want to revisit it, then it's good that it's on Netflix for you.
And I'm going to give it a 4. I think if I saw this in a cinema, I would be gutted.
Spend £12 on it.
Yeah, spend £12 and go to cinema.
15 with your popcorn.
Back in 1995, there was like 3.
Yeah, true.
So,
That's true.
But engagement score.
I think I'm living proof, kind of. I mean, to be fair, if I was going to... I think once you become interested in the material, and I'm not saying that this sort of will spawn some kind of cult following or whatever, but I was in Salem, Massachusetts a few years ago with a very good friend of mine, and I saw on the wall of this thrift shop a painting of Christopher Walken as his character, Archangel Gabriel. And I thought, my God, someone else likes this. Someone else must have seen it and put in the artwork. But I mean, I think once you get started into it, the engagement is based on your mood and sort of, I don't know. I'd go literally sort of 2 to 3, because unless you love it, it's not gonna
keep you in there.
Yes, exactly.
So what do you want?
I think we're gonna go with, if you love it, we'll go with 5, but I think the average one will go with 3.
But this should be for your engagement, really.
My engagement, I mean, when I first saw it, it did take 2 viewings. So I will say, okay, so I'll give it a 3, because it did take me a while to watch the full movie. Once I got a grasp on what the angels were and how they presented, I just loved it. But it was an idea. It wasn't watching the whole film.
I'm going to go 2. And yeah, same for me, actually. I liked it a lot better second time round. I did. I will admit that. But again, I would give it 5 years between.
Now stop it, because you've watched
very
it.
specific.
But I like it, and but I don't know why. And and I think it is that. It is
Is
the
it worth
ideas
a
of
repeat
it.
viewing?
I'm
gonna
maybe.
poker face you all the way into this.
No,
Would you watch it 3 times just
would
to
I
figure
watch
it out?
Yeah, in like 10 years. Oh no, I figured it out.
Oh yeah. It's not going to be
fine
on
now.
Netflix in 10
We
years.
set a reminder
I'll
for
set
this
a reminder.
time in 5 years' time, and then you watch it again, and then
That's
let us
all right.
know
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I will.
how you
I'll
feel
keep it to
from
that. I'll
there.
keep it to
See
that.
you in 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Can we do?
2022?
Yeah, 2022. We'll do the Prophecy and the Prophecy 2.
No, we won't.
Helen.
I'm going to give it a 2. It gets a lot better when Christopher Walken's in it. Eric Stoltz, he's a terrible actor. He's
Oh shit! You
he's-
didn't just say that.
He's
Really?
awful. He's got no
Casey.
charisma. He's got no screen presence.
Have you seen the small clips of him playing Marty McFly?
Now, hang on a second. Before
Wait,
we
what?
go into anything Back to the Future.
Okay.
Okay, go on.
I haven't. No. Should I? Will this change my opinion of?
No, the tone of the tone of those clips are
Because he
Bit
treated it very
must-
seriously.
yeah.
He thought he was this troubled kid who actually got to go back in time. He was questioning the fact why, a young boy would be friends with an older scientist. I mean that
Because it's cool.
Maybe it's
Yeah.
not
'Cause
the
it's a
genre.
scientist.
Maybe it's just him.
maybe
that's making me
He
think.
was in The Fly 2. He was in Pulp Fiction. Prophecy, obviously, but yeah, just Eric Stoltz, I think
I
is.
forgot. Yeah, he was in Pulp Fiction. So that's another Pulp Fiction.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Alum.
Well, hang on a second. Christopher Walken,
Plummer.
Eric Stoltz, and Amanda Plummer,
Yeah.
all in Pulp Fiction, produced by Miramax.
Yeah.
Said this earlier, and it was actually around the same time, but because the way that Miramax
They were
edited the
probably
movie-
contracted into
Yeah.
both of them.
Oh, absolutely,
You're in this
yeah.
really cool film. You
Be
have
in
to
the other
be
one.
in this
Oh,
other
yeah,
one.
they got like a 5-movie
Deal thing on them, yeah.
Eric Stoltz could have been Captain America. You never know.
Oh my
Just
god!
kidding,
Stop
just
it.
kidding.
Oh
Stop
god!
it.
Just had
So-
like a really horrible
Yeah.
feeling on the side.
There's a bit of bile there on the table now.
Sorry, Eric, not a fan of your work. Where was I? Engagement.
2, you said.
Yeah, I mean, the best bits are anything with Christopher Walken in it and Viggo. I
Yeah.
really should stop calling him. I just like calling him Viggo. It's
I
a
know.
cool
I do
name.
the same.
Yeah.
Oh, that's all right. Pronounce Mortensen.
Yeah, what's his
Mortensen?
first? I thought his
It's
first
Mortensen.
name.
Viggo.
Viggo Mortensen.
Is that his actual name?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that was one of his character's name.
Oh
No,
no.
his
No,
Lucifer.
he's
His
not-
character's
not-
name's
he's not the
Satan.
devil.
No, no,
Mortensen.
it's Aragorn, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I forgot what his called.
Arrogant Mortensen.
Yeah. He's just got so many names. Maybe that's
Acting.
I'm going to give it 1.5. I just wasn't fussed, and it took Adam to tell me what the story was. And like yourself, because I saw Viggo Mortensen's name in there, at the start in the title scroll at the start.
Were you waiting for him to appear?
Yeah, I was kind of waiting for him to appear.
I
It is a bit
forgot
of a
that
cheat.
he was
Yeah.
meant to
Really
be in
weird.
it, and then when
Yeah.
he appeared,
It's
it
the Luke
was...
Skywalker moment of Force Awakens. It's
Yeah.
just, you know.
I just want this film, but just Viggo. Like,
Well, no, hang on a second. No, I disagree.
I
because-
just want him in every scene, just lurking in the background, peeking over bushes.
That weird. I didn't like that weird kind of perch that all the angels did. It kind of
Oh,
freaked
you
me
know,
out.
Kobi.
Oh,
get
the weird
out.
little angel, the weird
Perch.
angel perch,
Yeah.
bird
No,
perch.
Yeah.
I'm glad you.
I'll
you
never
know,
look at Hawkeye the same way again.
Hawkeye.
Any character perching on a ledge, I'm just going to think.
I
"Wow."
thought it was incredible physical, not acting because anyone can perch, kind of. But it just created the strangeness of the character. They weren't human, even
Yeah.
though they looked human. They weren't, and I thought that was really. I thought it was really cool. And again, even with the setup, with the fact that their eyes are black and that they don't have the same physiology as humans, I liked the fact that every time there was a perch, and we saw 3 characters do that. Well, kind of. Lucifer sort of was an exception, but
He
even-
turned it into birds, though.
he did. But do you remember the character at the very beginning? The one I don't, Azazel or
Uziel.
Uziel.
Yeah.
Very good. Yes. Thank you. Not worth a repeat viewing at all.
I'm good with character names.
very
Actor names
good.
terrible.
He did this. That was exemplified by the fact that they were perching on really awkward things like
Spots.
the back of a chair
Yeah.
or a corner table or even a sign. I thought that was very physically attractive. I think it drew me into like what's going on with this guy.
Yeah, it did look quite. I mean, when Christopher Walken meets Adam Goldberg, his pet, for the first time,
Yes.
he's there perched on the edge of the chair.
Yes.
But actually, I was kind of more interested in how did they do that?
Yeah.
But again, they're otherworldly, and they've had to sort of amalgamate that with this very strange character. It was very cool. So that's my take on
I
it.
liked their angelic manicures as well.
The black nails,
The creepy
absolutely,
silvery
yeah.
nails.
Did not pick that up.
Yeah.
And was Christopher Walken in leather trousers?
Yes, he was.
Because all I could think the whole way through is
He
this
must be
where
really
Joss
hot.
Whedon got his whole bad guys need to wear lots of leather?
So this ties into Buffy a bit.
Grand
as well, doesn't
design?
it?
yes, it does.
There is that. Well, that's exactly what I was
Grand
thinking. When I saw it.
designs.
Grand
Yeah,
designs.
Kevin McLeod wears leather trousers.
I've
all
never
the
seen
time.
that.
And he is an evil angel / evil
He's an
vampire. Is that
angel,
what we're
yeah.
saying?
Yeah. See?
So-
Can we change some scores here?
So our final score is 2.4, which I think is a fair.
I think that's a flare reflection on that one.
a flare
Yeah,
reflection.
Flare reflection.
I don't know. I'd give
Netflix-
this. Ironically, it's about a 3 out of 5. Right
Your
now.
score is 3.25.
Yeah.
So I think that's fair. But overall Flixwatcher cruise score is 2.4, which is I think on Netflix it is actually about 2.5.
stars, yeah, I
Yeah.
think so.
So I
yeah.
think
That's very fair.
that's very fair.
But if you love this kind of stuff, get it in you.
Yeah. So should we sound off, guys? Who are you guys, and where can we find you? And the Twitters if you're on the Twitter.
The Twitter, what's that? No one should be able to find me. I'm a ghost. No, I'm on Twitter. I'm at Mr. Fancy Pants 2K. So it's true. I'm literally wearing flares. I'm not, and that's how people can find me. But yeah, I'll probably see you around if you attend events, red carpets, Comic-Cons, award shows, things like that. Come by, say hello and high five.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter and Instagram. It's Shell A Johnson, but Shell's a Michelle, which I always need to. Basically, if someone could please think of a better Twitter name for me, I'd be really, really grateful, because Michelle Johnson, the most common name in the world, you can't find a Twitter handle. So it's CHELLEA Johnson.
Shella Johnson.
Yeah. So yeah, if anyone can think of something better, please tell me immediately, because
I
that'd be
don't see
great.
anything wrong with that
Yeah,
one.
that's fine by
pretty
me.
Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's just
Own it. Just
yeah,
own
own it. Yeah.
Yeah, I've kind of had to.
Yeah, that's all for now, guys. Thanks for your time.
Oh,
Thanks.
thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank
honestly.
you.
You're the
Thanks and
best.
bye.
Yeah. Bye.
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 Hey, hope you enjoyed that episode. Please do scroll down the list and find out all the show notes and click on the links to find lovely, lovely people on their Facebook and the Twitter and their website, because, they'd love to hear from you and love to hear that you found them from listening to Flixwatcher.
Massive thanks, as always, to GL Productions for their fantastic editing skills. Did you hear the pins drop? No, you didn't. That's how good they are. Thank you, the 2 T's, Toby, Tony, Greg, and Jay.
Of course, please big up Mighty People for the tunes you can hear now. And at the start of the podcast, please don't forget to subscribe to us on iTunes, find us on Twitter at FlixWatcherPod, and visit our website, flixwatcher.tv.